Sunday. Uh, YouTube's doing some weird glitch right now where it's messing with the orientation of the phone. So I'm just I'm just accommodating. Anyway, I hope you guys are having a fabulous Sunday. Let me what you guys have cooked up for today. But hey, let's go ahead and get started. So if you don't know who I am Tara with Kittens, Weights, and Tarot. You can learn a little bit more about me by checking out the information box down below and checking out my website, kittensweightsandtarot.com, checking out Desert Cauldron, checking out ways to support the channel, which, by the way, thank you for everybody who does already currently support the channel. So thank you to all of my subscribers. But all of that information is down below for YouTube members, Patreon, all that good stuff. And hey, while we're doing some shout outs for our subscribers, we're almost at 11,000 subscribers. That is amazeballs. But I want to shout out my YouTube members, Kayla, Nancy, Astrid, Jolene, and Duality Tales. Also, for my Patreon members, Lily, Dana, Jamie, Kayla, Surian, Brandy, Jason, Brian, Palu, Crystal, Easy Does It, Oz, Joel, 1111, and Casey Gritter. So thank you guys so much. Yay! All right. So let's see. Okay, there we go. Just messing with the camera today. It's so interesting. YouTube, usually when I'm doing my live chats, it's like, oh, you can only do it in like the Instagram fashion. And now it's like, no, you got to, today, all of a sudden, it's like, you got to do it in landscape. So, hey, Lily's here. Hi, Lily. What's up? So yeah, we have some cool stuff cooked up for you guys today. First and foremost, we are going to start off with the weekly reading. And then I have a full-on ceremony planned to connect to our ancestors. And I know that there's a multitude of ways that we can connect to our ancestors. We can connect to them sometimes in our dreams. Sometimes we just set the intention. They're there. We're chit-chatting. I do that during my mediumship readings. Sometimes I, do a full-on ceremony. Sometimes there are different, ritualistic things people do to connect and bring in, or invoke their ancestors. So I am going to be actually accessing my native heritage in order to connect to my native ancestors. So I have a lot of those tools here, and we're going to be utilizing those right after the weekly reading. But that was something that you guys had voted on. And so those who are new to the channel and those who are, maybe watch the replay later on, you're wondering, like, what is this voting? Well, every Thursday, I put out a poll on my YouTube channel page. I also put it out on Patreon and for my YouTube members. So technically, if you're on Patreon or you're a YouTube member or both, you get extra votes. So if there's something that you really, truly want to see during a live chat, you can kind of like sway the vote that way, by being a part of those memberships. But there were 4 suggestions that could be done during this live chat, and most everybody had voted on doing a sacred pipe and talking stick ceremony in order to connect to our ancestors. So I'm super excited about that. I'm going to have a little bit of toast right now because I love toast. And also, I do feel like it's good to have, well, at least for me personally, I'm going to put a little bit of food in my body, just a little bit, to help ground myself, because I want to be as grounded as possible when I do this ceremony. Like I said, it's going to be after our weekly reading today. So in the meantime, if you guys have your tarot decks, or you are going to be channeling some information, or whatever divinatory device or non-device you are going to be utilizing, let me know. I have a lot of my decks here. I have my Wally's World, of course. We're going to be using Wally's World. If you would like to check out my Wally's World deck, the link for that is down below. But this is a community-based deck. I made this several years ago. That's actually my cat, Wally. He stayed behind in San Diego with his daddy, along with his adopted brother, Loki, who is a Bombay. But yeah, so I am going to be utilizing this deck. In here, I have the animal medicine oracle. I'm actually going to use that more for the ceremony to kind of direct which animal kin is going to be walking with us as we connect to our ancestors. I also have the Spacious Tarot with me and a deck of playing cards that I use for reading, actually, and that's my Native American playing cards. All right, so let's have a little bit more toast and let's ground ourselves a little bit more. So how are you guys doing? And Slopsec, one of our mighty moderators, is wishing everybody a good morning. So let me know, are you guys having some tea this morning, having some coffee this morning? Are you grounding yourself with some toast this morning? What do you guys have going on? I'm already feeling super grounded, so this is good. This is good. All right. Let's see. Let's take out my Wally's World. And let's go ahead and get started, homies. Lily says, I'm sleepy. Coffee. Nice. You know, there's normally I haven't been like a coffee drinker my whole life, and I would still say I'm not a coffee drinker, but there is a particular coffee with a particular creamer that I have that to me tastes like coffee flavored hot chocolate. So I love it. And I will drink that. And that is what I have. All right. So a slop six. It was, ooh, good idea, Lily. And Lily has her cards. Excellent. What deck are you utilizing? While I finish up my toast. I can't wait to show you guys all the tools I'm going to be utilizing later to connect with our ancestors. Remember, I said that it could be as simple as, we set the intention, think about one of our ancestors or our departed loved ones, and they're there. They always are. But sometimes I like to use tools, outside the self. Sometimes I like to have ceremony. And so that's what we're going to be doing today. YouTube must have done some update because everything looks a lot different today in the live chat. All of the controls, and it keeps giving me these notifications of like, hey, this person has entered or something like that. Interesting. Very interesting. All right. Lily has her Rider-Waite. She got the 9 of Cups, really wanted to come out. Ooh. Hey now. Delicioso. Simple toast. Comfort food. Okay. Let's get ready for that weekly reading. I have Wally's World right here. Check out the gilded edges. And let's see. Let's ask Wally. Just maybe the overarching theme for this upcoming week. I remember this is a general reading, but we seek to kind of look at what's going on in the collective consciousness. And all of us here are part of that collective consciousness. Not just human beings, but all entities across all dimensions, all manner of beings here in the third dimension, as plants, animal, minerals, so on and so forth. So just tapping into that collective. And what is this overarching theme for this upcoming week? Let's see. Ooh, okay. So the card that popped up here, this is actually Mission Valley in San Diego. And I took this picture from my uncle's house. He used to have this house kind of overlooking the 8 freeway and overlooking Mission Valley here. And I felt that this was like a sacred spot because it was so peaceful and calm from that cliff, and you get to see, it's like 2 different worlds, the lights and the busyness and the hubbub of, everything below you, but up on the hill, just peace and serenity. And I love that juxtaposition. and it was a beautiful place to meditate. But anyway, so I want to tap in for the message. And if you're wondering where Wally is photoshopped into this card, he is right up there in one of my roses, just kind of looking down on San Diego. And speaking of San Diego, actually, my father, his birthday was yesterday, and he turned 85 years old yesterday. I'm like, dude, when did my dad get old? But I tell you, my dad does not look old. A lot of people are like, how is your dad 85? Like he's looks 60 at best. Anyway, he's in Palm Springs enjoying the warm weather where I'm out here in the snow and I love it. So anyway, okay, so let's tap in and see what this means for our upcoming week. Okay, so just again, tapping into the collective, overarching theme, you apply this to what's going on in your life because we all have different things going on in our lives. We're all at different places in our lives. So this is just all about observation. So if things get a little hectic and a little crazy this week, or just not feeling good about it, or something stressing you out or giving you anxiety, try as best you can to take a step back, take a breather. Don't have to go into a full-on meditation, but just in that moment, even if you're standing in line at the DMV, just like I was doing with my piece of toast, just quickly just trying to ground, connect to the higher self, come back into the heart space, and let's gain perspective on what is happening. So almost removing yourself from the situation. I know possibly can't maybe physically remove yourself from the situation, but give yourself a moment to remove your perspective at the moment. So just moving back a little bit, getting ourselves out of being in it and just being observant of it, even though we might be part of that situation. So just, if I were to take a bird's eye view, what does this mean in the whole grand scheme of things, the things that are happening? If I were to have given myself this as a lesson or something that I could exercise my skills in, then how would this situation aid me in doing so? And when we look at it more as an opportunity to grow and see ourselves differently, see the other people in the situation differently. It's not to say that it solves anything. This is not about solving anything. This is more about changing how we look at ourselves, how we look at other people, how we look at the situation, and how it ultimately affects us, affects others, how our reaction is affecting not only ourselves, but others. And then from there, maybe we can make some different choices based on that different perspective. So, take that as you will for this overarching theme for this week. And then I want to pull a few cards, just asking for anything else we need to know this week. And for that, I have my Spacious Tarot. This is actually one that I backed on Kickstarter. And I think it's such a fun deck. That's the back of the cards. And it's all about space, hence the Spacious Tarot, allowing your intuition to fill in the spaces. Okay, so let's pull a few cards here. Man, it feels so good in the sunshine right now. It's interesting because I'm wearing my new boots. I went thrifting yesterday, and scored some really good stuff, including these Steve Madden Troopa boots I got for $5. $5 make you holla. Anyway, so I'm wearing those new boots, but it's like you could feel the ice like beneath the sole of the boots, and I'm like, ooh, my feet are a little cold, but at the same time I could be sweating with the sun right now. It's like, talk about juxtaposition, right? Okay, so let's pull just a few cards, perhaps for clarification, perhaps for something else that we need to know for this upcoming week. Let us take a gander. All right. Let's see here. Lily says it was commenting on, yeah, YouTube, it must have done some sort of weird update like that. Hey, our buddy John is here. What's up, John? Lily also welcoming in our friend. Okay, so we have the Knight of Pentacles, which is the Explorer of Pentacles in this deck. We have the Four of Wands. I'm loving that. And lastly, we have the Elder of Pentacles, which is like your King of Pentacles. We have this happy bear in the background. Okay, so let's put all of these together. Oh, okay, so that's interesting. I think this is just more clarification, or in addition to the theme card that we pulled with Mission Valley in San Diego. So as we are going through whatever situation it is we're going through, or, it could be a situation with another person. It could be an internal situation. For my English geeks out there, it's the different phases of conflict, right? There's external conflict, internal conflict, conflict with nature, conflict with another person, so on and so forth. You guys get it. Anyway, not conflict so much as in, it's got to be a big thing, but just anything that causes stress or duress, things like that. And so as we pull back for that perspective, and we're looking at, if this were something I brought to myself for a reason, what am I meant to learn from it? What skills am I meant to bring out in myself? What skills am I growing in myself because of this? And in this, we could do a bit of reflection. If this situation were to have happened last year, 5 years ago, 15 years ago, 50 years ago, how would we have handled it differently? And by doing that, we are able to see how we've grown and morphed in ways because of how we handle situations. Sometimes it's difficult to see the growth we've done, or how we've done our healing, because we're always kind of present. We're always in the moment, right? But when something comes up that throws us off kilter, or is outside the norm, then we're like, whoa, and we immediately react. We immediately have to take care of whatever is occurring. Again, internally, externally, whatever it may be. But how we handle things is definitely changes based on how we see ourselves. And although in the present we might say, oh, I've always been the same person, but it's not, we think that until a situation comes up where we're like, wait a minute, dude, if this was me last year, I totally would have done da 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 da. And now we can gain that different perspective. Now we can see ourselves a little bit differently, because the ego, which I never want to bash the ego. It's just a 3D thing, right? It's meant to be what it is. It gets stuck in the past. And so sometimes when we say, oh, I'm this person and I like this, and this is my personality and I always handle situations like that, that's just a way for the ego to feel comfortable in understanding itself. And what it may be understanding itself as is someone that you used to be, and not necessarily the person that you are in the present moment. So just take that into consideration. And also we could go into the ego. We could ask it, you said that I would act this way, but I ended up acting this way, or reacting this way. So let's take a look at where this sense of self or identity, what program or programming, where is this actually stemming from? And you might find it's actually a version of you that was you when you were 5 years old and has nothing to do with you now when you're, say, 50 years old. So take that into consideration. Okay. All right, you guys. So I'm super excited to dive into today's ceremony, utilizing my my Pima ancestors, which were also known as the river people. And although the different tribes kind of spread out throughout, different parts, for the most part, they would say that the Pima were a part of not only what is Sonora, Mexico right now, but also moving up on into southern New Mexico and southern Arizona. And so the they were known for obviously staying close to water sources and creating baskets and some of the things that are just I think is so wonderful when I connect to my ancestors. And I actually had an opportunity to like be right where they had literally walked like a couple thousand years ago. And that was when I was in Tenejas Altas in Yuma, Arizona. And wow, to be able to still see that there are remnants, the metates still left behind in the stone, a couple of pieces of shell still left behind from trade because, obviously where's the ocean here. But they were trading with other tribes down in Mexico who were coming up here, well, at least in southern Arizona, for this trade. And it was just amazing. So I really, truly love being able to do that. And that was also part of the reasoning why I wanted to come to Arizona, not consciously where I was like, whoa, I want to connect to my ancestors, so I'm going to go to Arizona. But I have always had this connection that I can't really explain, and it's been since, I was very young. And although my grandfather used to have property up here, it was every time I would come to Arizona, whether I was up in the mountains or down in the desert, in the valley, there was just this connection, like I belong here, that this is my home. And I know that there's so many different biomes here in Arizona. You got, some of the tall trees, and then you forests like mine on my property. You have the valley, you have the very, very arid desert, like near Yuma and stuff like that. And it's just, to me, all of it is my home. I feel at home in all of these places. Mostly I feel at home here, where I feel the most connection is up here in the mountains, but I could feel at home anywhere in Arizona. And I feel like a lot of that has to do with not only my physical DNA ancestry, but I also feel it's an energetic connection as well. So that being said, I would like to go into ceremony to bring in my ancestors, have a little chat with them. Maybe we can ask them some questions. So if you guys have questions, you guys will be able to post them there. And yeah, we'll do that. So I may not do a lot of talking or reading the chat because I'm going to be out and about doing what I do. For the first part, I may be seated, but no, I mean, we'll see. So I'm just going to open up. Actually, I do have to walk around now I think about it, because I'm like, well, maybe I could do everything seated. My ancestors are like, they're like, get that blood flowing, girl, get up, walk around. I'm like, okay. All right, so here we go. All right, I'm gonna move you guys back here. So have fun. I'll be around. Let's see. Let's move it like that. Okay.
Okay, so what I'm doing right now, just after connecting to the heartbeat of Mama Gaia and connecting to all the souls that have ever walked her land, walked her soil, I'm using sweetgrass as an offering for my ancestors and just kind of calling them in with the breath. This representing the breath of earth, while also being powerfully cleansing. And if you've ever smelled sweetgrass, then you know how wonderful it smells and it lasts forever. Okay. I'm going to allow that to continue to burn a little bit. And John says he loves sweetgrass. Sweetgrass is amazing. I have a herbal blend. This is an herbal smoke blend that I call Spirit Rising. And it's one that I actually sell on my website, but I originally created it as a earth offering to my ancestors when I smoke pipe. So in it, there are different pieces like mullein, mostly for lungs, but the rose petals, the uva ursi, lavender, the mugwort, kind of all together, all those different plant allies are given as offering, again, as the breath. Here we have the breath of earth, breathing, with the oxygen and the fire. But in here, when I smoke pipe, it's to represent the totality of all. So we have the fire representing the fire within, but also the fire in Gaia. We have the breath and all of that, and the water, which is also within that breath, within my breath. And then the earth, which is part of the sacred herbs that are in here. So I'm going to put some of those in my pipe. And
I really only use this for special occasions and ceremony. But this particular pipe was created by Bright Sky, who is no longer with us in physicality, but he walks with our ancestors now. And I got this in powwow over in the Barona powwow in San Diego. So a lot of the things that he has created, obviously is very special now because he cannot create anymore. Although his wife is still creating, many wonderful things. So I'm going to put some of my smoke blend in here, and I'm going to use that as an offering. Also bringing in with my breath, my ancestors. John was wondering if you can smoke sweetgrass. That I'm not sure. I've never tried to smoke sweetgrass, but I will put some of my herbs in here. Not my sweetgrass, but my herbs, but we shall see. All right, so let's go ahead and herb it up. It smells so good. I wish you guys could smell it. So if there was smell-o-vision, you guys would be able to smell all that. It's just so lovely. John says, I thought you were saying you were. I understand now. Oh, okay. No worries. Okay, so I'm going to reach in, put a little bit in my pipe. That should be good. Pipe doesn't hold a whole lot of herb, but it's not meant for just like chilling out and smoking. Although I guess you could do that, but this particular pipe is sacred to me. So it's what I use for ancestral work. Okay, I'll put that off to the side. And so with every puff and intention, my intention is to have them come forward if they would like to, help us out with any questions we may have, and basically just surround us in their wisdom, their knowledge, their understanding of the other world, as well as their understanding of what it was like to walk this land, walk this earth. Earth walk, we might call it. I also want to honor the east, where the sun has risen. That beautiful doorway to all possibility and the infinite. Yet. Also to the north, where much wisdom is shared. Also our ancestors to the west. Where we understand death and rebirth and closure. And to the south, where we understand earth, rebirth, and one's own mortality and immortality, duality. And also to everyone who's watching, in honor of your ancestors, no matter your background, no matter where your ancestors walked the soil during their time here on earth, honoring them too and inviting them in. And we just continue. Until all of our herb offered up. And in this, also understanding the importance of our breath and how remarkable it is and special. And as I blow the smoke and inhale it into my lungs, also being aware how the breath is all around us, not only in the trees and other animals, but also seeing breath in minerals, in rocks, seeing breath in the ocean, seeing breath in the sky, seeing breath in the ground, breath in the in-between, and breath at dawn and at dusk. Seen as very magical hours. And usually when I'm on the property and it's near sunset, I do like to take my drum out and just kind of give thanks for the day, and just remembering that heartbeat. And then although we go into darkness, into night, that heartbeat still travels. It is infinite and it is eternal. And so all of these things I think about while I'm smoking pipe. And for me, I do feel that many of our ancestors, especially the ancestors that I have seen on my hill as well, the Net, the Apache, the Anasazi, also known as the Atul, but also my own Pima ancestors, my own personal 3D bloodline. I do feel they live on in the trees, and that is something that was passed down, from my Nana to me, that she would tell me that, in every single tree, no matter if the tree was just a little sapling or if it was, a ginormous redwood or, whatever, that there is a spirit in each of them, and each of those trees, even though it is its own spirit, it also is the home of an ancestor. And so that's why trees were seen as very sacred. And when we cut down trees, we have to just understand that. And that's why we have to honor those trees. And we understand that oftentimes we do cut them down, for firewood or whatever it may be, but just to honor their sacrifice. And it's not to say that that ancestor is no longer with us because that tree has been cut down, but they move around, from tree to tree. And in all realities and in all timelines, there are timelines where that tree was never cut, and that we can place our intention or our vision in is where the tree still stands, even though perhaps in this present reality the tree no longer stands, if that makes sense. Long way. All right. So we give thanks. All right. And now I wanted to pull a card from my animal medicine oracle. So many of you guys recognize the lightning bolt of this oracle deck. But I'm just asking for an animal companion to guide us as we have a little chit chat with our ancestors. Nice. We have eagle. I love that. We do have eagles in this area, so that's wonderful. Okay. And with that, I also want to bring over my talking stick. Which this talking stick, I'm going to say my dad. My dad is old. But anyway, it has different pieces here for protection, for opening, and also for here telling the story of the earth itself. And then we have roe deer, which is here, also to guide us between worlds. And then although these are not necessarily like true eagle feathers, they are turkey feathers that have been dyed to look like eagle feathers. But it would be very, very special if there were eagle feathers on here. Okay, so I use this to open up ceremony, to allow my ancestors to speak as well as me to speak. And that way it's a formal setting of we're sitting down and we're having a chat right now. All right, so I am going to hold on to this while I put my blankie back on. And ooh, I might want to bring the camera closer once again. There we go. Okay. Keep my legs nice and warm. While we continue. Okay. Making sure my little Navajo blanket stays nice and clean. Okay, so I have talking stick here with me. Remember that we are walking with Eagle at the moment to help us in that communication and also aid us in that protection. And so I'm just asking one of my relatives, one of my Pima ancestors, the Tohono O'odon, to come forward. Okay. This is one of my female ancestors, she is saying. Tika, one who dances. Probably because I love dancing. I love dancing so much. So, I'm asking, as we stand here in the midst between spring and winter, slowly getting the last bits of snow on the ground before it truly starts to warm up here. I'm asking her also about other important between times. And she's saying, well, there's many important between times that you can honor throughout the day. She says the times just before you wake while you're still somewhat asleep, and the times just before you are almost asleep, but you are mostly awake. She was saying there's the between times that I had mentioned earlier, just before the sun rises and just before it fully sets. She says there's the between time when you enter this world. You come from a world of feeling and emotion and darkness into a world of sound and light and intensity when you're birthed. And the between times at death, where we go from this very tangible, very intense, very loud portal or world, going back into a world not of darkness, meaning scary, but back into energy, back into feeling, back into emotion, back into trusting without eyes. She says you can even honor the times between breath, between your exhales and your inhales. There's that stillness between your heartbeats. She says there's so much that you could honor, not only inside of your body, but outside of your body as well. And understanding that the outside world is merely just a reflection of all that magic and all of that beauty, those in-between times that are within you. Every time you blink your eyes between darkness and light, she says there's also where we sometimes need to spend more time in the between times before we speak. She says there's that moment where you're formulating a sentence or you're formulating a response. And then with the breath comes your magic, comes your words and response. And so that every word that exits your lips is important. So I'm asking her, just while she's with us here today, if she has any other message. I know that I could stay in ceremony probably for hours talking to my ancestors, but part of the ceremony was to bring in your ancestors as well, and she knows this. And I ask that your ancestors surround you just as much as my ancestors are surrounding me. And in the grand scheme of things, we are all one. So what is mine is yours, and what is yours is mine. We are all one. My ancestors are your ancestors are my ancestors. She's saying just one message that she feels is very important for all of us at this time is when we become laser focused on things. She says sometimes it can be very good, when we are in the midst of creating something. She says maybe we have the intensity and concentration of weaving a basket. Perhaps we are chipping away and creating, what we might see as an arrowhead in order to either honor the hunt or to actually utilize it for hunt. But she's saying that when we get intently focused on a particular project or person or situation, we sometimes forget that there is a whole other dimensions and portals that surround us and so many other opportunities. And so it is okay, she's saying, is if you are, let's say, weaving that basket, to be focused on it and placing your intention, but don't forget about the life that surrounds you and all the beauty that surrounds you, the opportunities and the people that are around you. She says, that's part of weaving that basket, is taking everything that surrounds you and placing it in that intention. It is not forgetting that everything is still going on, that life still surrounds you. Wow. Um, but also creating something beautiful from it as well. She's like, do you like the bird? She says, this was on purpose. She was even telling me she says, with me, she says, you are intently focused on communicating with me. She says, but don't forget, she says, all of this that surrounds you is also me. The bird in the sky making the call. Wow. Oh my gosh, you guys. It's literally hovering. They're both hovering overhead. That is amazing. Wow. Oh my gosh. I would point the camera up, but it would be too far away for you guys to see. But both birds were circling overhead. That was so cool. But yeah, she was like, she says, there is other things going on. She says, there's the birds, there's the trees, there's the wind, there's the snow, there's the sound of the water falling from the metal roof of the barn. She's like, there's so much. She goes, well, you could also be intently connecting to me. She goes, bring all that in, and it brings so much more of a rich experience, and it brings in more message than if I were just intently focused on speaking to the one. And with that, I feel like her energy is moving away. So I thank She Who Dances for coming with us here today. I will place my talking stick down. I thank her for coming. All right. Oh my goodness. That was so special. I'm so excited. All right. Well, before we end this live chat and do our channeled guided meditation, I would like to do some super chats and super stickers if you guys are interested. If not, we will go on into our channel guided meditation. Yeah, and we'll call it a beautiful Sunday. So I'll let you guys think about any questions you may have. Oh, guess what? Rex is here. You guys might see him walking around. Hold on. There he is. Checking out all the goodies. You know what he really liked? He liked that sweetgrass. But you know what? Who doesn't like sweetgrass? It smells like maize balls. Even Rex knows that. Yeah, hello. Hello, sir. Hello. So John, yay! Would love to do a reading for John. Let me know what your question is. Or if you would like a general message, or maybe we just connect with one of your ancestors, that would be cool too. Perhaps I will use my native playing cards, which I do use divinatorily. Well, hello. John said, oh, okay, well, I'm tapping into the ancestors. All right, cool beans. We'll have another sip. Ground ourselves again. Okay. And our talking stick technically is very much still active. I haven't quite completed ceremony. So they're still out and about, still chit-chatting. I just have let go of one of my ancestors as she needed to possibly get busy with whatever it was that she was doing. All right, John, so let's tap in. Okay, so John, I was seeing one of your ancestors. I was seeing hammering and I was seeing an anvil. Oh, maybe a blacksmith. Maybe that's what I was seeing. Just like hammering away on this anvil. Okay, so let's pull a card for it and a message from that particular ancestor. And we have the Five of Spades, Black Belly from the Cheyenne. Okay, so let's tap in. Okay, interesting. So your blacksmith relative was saying, when before he even creates anything, before he even gets to that anvil, he has a vision in his mind of what he would like to create. And he says, and sometimes he goes about creating it, and sometimes it doesn't work out. Sometimes he says it comes out weird and he has to start all over again. He says, but sometimes that's also part of the vision. It's not that it's what I'm going to create is going to be absolutely perfect, but more, he says, the intention is what needs to be created will be created. And sometimes in that means that we need to, he doesn't want to say fail, really. He says because it is all part of the process. So really, there is no failure. He says, let's say I were to create a sword for somebody, and let's say he says, I messed up before I even was able to put it on the hilt. He says, my intention was that this sword would need to be how it needs to be. And some of that means that it's not perfect in our eyes the very first time. He says there's lessons to be learned along the way. I needed to find a different way. And in that different way, I created something even more better than my original vision when I was creating that sword. And so he wants to pass that along to you, that it's okay that, in your mind, your mind may see a particular thing. I want my life to go like this, or what I create must look like this. But your intention is that it will be created in the way that it needs to be created. And he says, and that's what allows for more of that magic. So although the original vision may not look like you wanted, the intention comes out exactly like you wanted. You wanted it to be what needed to be, what was the best for you, for your best and highest good. So basically, and he says, so there were times that it needed to, in your mind, be broken or not come out the way it was supposed to, quote unquote. He says, because you were meant to see the transformation and the morphing of what could be when we don't become laser focused, kind of like what my ancestor was saying. So he says that's why intention is sometimes or oftentimes much more important. Well, to him, he says it's the most important thing next to what we actually envision in our mind. So in your next adventure for yourself, for your healing and who you see yourself to be, it's okay to have that vision in your mind. But really, he says your intention is, I want to be the best version of John that I could be, that I want to heal, that I want to grow. He says, and in that is the expansion and that is the magic. And so along the way, it may not appear that we are on the right path. It may appear that we've done something wrong. It may appear that we've broken something. He says, but that was on purpose because of the intention that you set, so that you could see that it could be done a different way, so that you could see how beautiful it is when we allow for that expansion. And he's going back to hitting the anvil with his hammer. And there's like a red hot, like tip of a sword. It's not a full sword yet, but just the blade. He's just working on the blade for now. He says the hilt and the pommel come later. But for now, you're just working on the blade. All right, John, I hope that makes sense. Thank you. John said, thank you. Thank you, ancestors. All right, 1111 is here. He says, do I have an ancestral message? All right, so let's pull you one as well. And our friend Mike is here. He says, hi, all love from across the pond. Glad I could say hello. Well, hello. And then Andrea is also here. She says, aho from Austria to everyone. Wow, hello. And Lily, yay. I'm happy to pull a card for you as well. She says, good day, Tara. Any messages from my ancestors? Can you reach my Tayano bloodlines? Sure. And John said, also, my cat is going to the vet. I'd appreciate healing if anyone would like to send good vibes. We definitely will. You guys are really good at sending good healing animal vibes. So thank you guys. All right. So 1111, let's tap into your ancestors. Okay. So 1111, the first thing I see is somebody, and it looked like they were playing in mud, but they're not playing in mud. They're utilizing clay. But I see somebody's hand trying to smooth out like the innards of a bowl. So I do see something spinning on a wheel, holding a bowl out of clay. And it's like manual. I see their foot going, and the table continues to spin, and they're continuing to use their hand to kind of smooth out the innards of a bull. And this is very interesting because, you know, with John's ancestor, he was in the middle of creating something as well. He was the blacksmith. And here for you, your ancestor, I see the artisan, you know, creating not just something for somebody to eat out of or to put water in, but no matter what it's going to be utilized for, this creation is art. It's sacred. How we use it is up to us. The creation of it is the most important. And your ancestor saying, it doesn't bother me, or they don't want to say they don't care, but that's just kind of like the words I was getting. That it doesn't matter how the person utilizes this bowl. They could put they said they could put Chex Mix in it for all I care. They could fill it with coffee. They could fill it with seeds that they found out and about. It doesn't matter what goes in the bowl. That's for them, and that is for their intention, for their practice, for their mission in life. For me, my mission is to create the art. What people do with that art, that is up to them, and that's where I release my responsibility. My only responsibility is to myself and to my creations. I want this bowl to be my soul. I want a part of my soul to be embedded in this, part of my magic, my love for earth, which is clay, my love for my art, and my love for self, and understanding that I'm creating something for someone else. But again, after that bowl leaves my hands, it doesn't matter what they do with that bowl. Sometimes we become so attached to things that we want to control what people do with the things that we create. And he's saying, I could have been very miserable if every bowl I ever created, I then told the person what they were meant to do with that creation. But instead, I release it, knowing that my creation was meant for them. And now it is up to them to figure out what they would like to do with it. Okay, so let's pull a card on that. Oh, wow. Lots of people coming on in. Excellent. Okay, we have the Ace of Diamonds. We have Bear Bull from the Blackfoot. And your ancestor says, we are all here with you right now. We understand that this is something that you are struggling with. You are in the midst of being the potter, the one who creates, the artisan. And the artisan, again, is focused on their intention, putting their magic into that creation. But remember that how your magic, how your art is received is not a part of your responsibility. Your only mission right now is to be the artist, be fully in that art. Of course, being aware of all things around you so that you can incorporate it into your art, much like my Pima ancestor had said. But enjoy that process. And you will enjoy it more when you're worried less about the outcome and worried less about how others will receive that outcome or what they will do with that outcome. Your only mission is the art. Your only mission is the vision. And that is all. And it is also a part of being a service to others. So, where we fully honor our own heart and our own creation, and then we release. Yay! All right, 1111. I hope this resonates. I hope that connected with you. Casey Gritter is here. Hey, says good morning, Tara. I usually sit and watch and never comment, but today, could I please have an ancestral message? I can send a super chat, but I'll definitely Cash App it. Sure, and I believe I have. Do I have Cash App? I do have Cash App, actually. But I also have a PayPal if you wanted to do it that way. So I have the link for PayPal down below. The PayPal me. PayPal.me/kittenswaitstarot or Venmo. So sure. No worries. Mike says, my cat Bella sends her love to your cat John. Aw, that is so sweet. Lily says, Taino is the indigenous people of Puerto Rico. They were thought to be extinct since Ponce de Leon times, but it was said that some fled with some of the African slaves to the mountains and hid where we are much alive. Ah, beautiful. Yeah, there's a lot of instances like that, I think, with a lot of our ancestral relatives, our ancestors and things like that. Knowledge Harvesters here says, yep, I guess I missed the live once again. Oh, you're right on time. We're still chit-chatting. 1111 says, nailed it. Love and light to all. Yay, I'm so glad it connected with you. Yay. And Casey Gritter says, I appreciate you. I'll definitely send it through. All right, excellent. So let's also pull a card for our friend Lily first, and then we'll get our friend Casey Gritter. All right, so Lily was also wondering about, again, those ancestors, those Taino ancestors from Puerto Rico. Okay, so one of your ancestors is showing me being weary, and I can't see their face. All I see is from the knees down, and being barefoot. And I see they have a stick. I think it's a walking stick. But they're walking over rocks and mud. And it's a person not too young, not too old. And they're saying, my feet hurt. I can't go on. My feet hurt. And they're pointing to the different voices that go on inside of us, not like different voices in our head, but your ancestor was saying there is the little voice in this long sojourn that says, wow, from point A to point B, I can't fathom it. I've never done it before, so it must be hard. And if it's hard, maybe I can't do it. And the ancestor's saying, if you've never done something before, how do you know it's hard? How do you know you can't do it? You only know until you've done it. And then there's also the physical body, where if the mind is saying, it's far, I've never done it before, it's hard, I can't do it, then the physical body will respond in kind. And so the physical body, understanding that the mind says that it's distant, distance is great, therefore my feet will begin to hurt. And so the feet do begin to hurt. Really, the body is in response to the mind, and sometimes the mind is in response to the body. But your ancestors are saying we have to go a little bit deeper than that. If my mind is saying, it's too great, it's too far, I can't do it, and now my feet hurt, well, now we need to look into why. Why are we saying the distance is too great that you can't do it? Why are you saying that you can't do something that you've never done before? And now we're feeling physical pain because of it. And so your ancestor is saying to look into the times where you feel physical pain. Perhaps you feel an aching in the legs. Perhaps you feel an aching in the feet. But really, that's in response to something, right? And of course, we have our 3D explanation. It could be that maybe we're wearing too small of shoes and so our feet ache. But let's take a look at the broader perspective, which was the message at the beginning of this live chat. And your ancestor is reiterating it. If my feet are hurting, or whatever part of your body is hurting, it's in response to something that we have told ourselves. And it is talking to us, right? And so we don't want to ignore it, but we go into it. And so your ancestor, I see, sitting on a rock, looking down at her feet. And she's asking her feet, why do you pain me? Why are you hurting me at this time? And the feet said, because you said the distance was too great. Because you said that you can't do it. Because you said that it's too far and that it would be painful. And therefore, I am telling you, it must be painful because you said so. And so she's having another talk with her feet. She says, well, let's go to who told you to be hurt. I'm going to go inwards. And the ancestor realizes, maybe I lack confidence in myself. Maybe I become so scared before I try and attempt anything that I've never done before, that I talk myself out of it before it's even begun. I create pain before I've even started the journey. I've become weary and tired before I've even taken a first step in the direction that I know that I need to go. And she's saying for you to take this consideration that you are on your journey. And sometimes there are branches in that journey, places you've never been before, either inwards or outwards. And you've already talked yourself out of it because you might be frightened. You've never been there before. It seems like it's a long adventure. But she says to be patient with yourself. That is just the scared child, and everyone has a scared child inside of them. And she says, but we do have to tend to that child and ask it why it feels that trepidation, why it feels scared, why it feels like it can't do something before it's even begun something. She says, and once you've been able to calm that child and understand its reasons and listen to it, then the mindset changes. Well, I might be a little scared because I've never walked that direction before, but I know that I need to go that direction and I'm fully capable of going there. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been called to go there in the first place. She says, and just like that, the feet are fully capable again. The pain goes away. Okay, so let's pull a card to go along with that. Ooh, and we have the Queen of Diamonds, young woman from the Wisham Chinook. And she says, you know, there are our names that are given to those that have departed this realm. You know, we're seen as spirits and, you know, ancestors. We're seen as the past. She says, and you are seen as the present, the earth walker. And she says, and that could be something you might want to see yourself as. You are the earth walker, which means you are meant to walk this earth. You are meant to do all the things that this earth has to offer while you're here. And she says, and yes, there's plenty that you can do when you're in spirit, but think about, you have this very finite time here on this plane. She says, you might as well walk everywhere, try everything, find out what interests you, what doesn't interest you. And she says, in everything, even if we see it as a win or a fail, she says, all of it's part of the earth walk. And that's an exciting experience. She says, because it's so much different when you're in the spirit realm. And she goes, we walk in the land of spirit, which is a little bit different, but she says, honor your time here, which means tackling the things that truly scare you, but not pushing and not listening to where that fear is coming from. She says, but that's part of the whole earth walk experience. Listen to where that fear is coming from and then push forward. She says, but always listen no matter where it's coming from in the body, whether it's coming from your feet, from your ego, from the soul. She says, try to understand all of it, and it'll help give you clarity as you move forward and less pain. All right, Lily, I hope this makes sense. Mike says, you're welcome, John. Knowledge Harvester says the possibility is only possible as far as your mind dictates. Yes. All right. So Casey Gritter, thank you again. I'm going to be sending that via a different way. Oh, hold on. Make sure my blankie is not in the mud. I love this blankie. Okay, so let's connect to your ancestor and have a little sip of coffee. Lily says, wow, it does as always. Well, I'm so glad. Yay! I love connecting to your ancestors. Oh my gosh. You guys have some wonderful people in your lineage. We had a blacksmith. We had a pot maker. We had somebody going on a long sojourn, a long walk. Let's see Casey Gritter's ancestor. Any message he or she may have for you. All right, so Casey Gritter, this is interesting. I'm seeing a small child. It actually appears to be, I can't quite put my finger on the culture, but it is like native. He's got a leather band around his head, and he's mostly nude. He's a very small child. And he was with his friends, but now he's all by himself, and he's at the top of this boulder, and down below there's like mud, sand, something like that. And he's at the top and he's like going like this. He's like, oh, and then he jumps off and he knocks the wind out of himself. And for a moment he's like, and there's tears in his eyes. But then after the tears and after the pain of basically landing on his face, he smiles and he gets so excited and he does it again. He runs to the top of the boulder. He's like, ah, and then he jumps off And again, he hits the ground and like, like I could feel the like of the diaphragm, like he's knocking the wind out of himself. And he's showing you that what he loved the most and what he wants to pass on to you is what we might consider something bad, failing, like, oh, that child failed, maybe he's meant to land on his feet, but he keeps knocking the wind out of himself. But for him, he says, it's when I don't know the outcome. Time I jump, I don't knock the wind out of myself, but it's in the not knowing that is the most thrilling and the most exciting. And he says, and actually, when things don't go my way, he says, that's when I feel the most alive. He says, I love the feeling of the unexpected. And he says, and so that's why he keeps doing it. He says, because there's no way I could like recreate and try to make a fail or a failure for myself. He says, it's something that's always out of our grasp. He says, failure is something that he sees as so wonderful. He says, when people succeed, it's like, he says, if I'm building something or creating something, for me, it's less satisfying than when it doesn't turn out exactly the way I wanted it. He says, because in the success, he feels that sometimes we become complacent. That's not to say that you should never strive for success. He goes, that's not what he's saying at all. But for him, he says, it's a change in perspective. Instead of trying to avoid the failures and focus on the successes, he says, focus on the failure and, the success. Okay, if it happens, it happens. But the failure is the fun part. He says, that's where I have the most fun. That's why I keep running to the top of that boulder. And he says, that's why I keep jumping off. And by the way, he's like 4 or 5 years old. He's like, I jump off because, he says, the earth knocks the wind out of me. I can't do that for myself. He says that exhilarating feeling of, being in between, like I'm almost like a bird in flight between the boulder and the ground. I feel like I'm flying because I've totally surrendered. I've totally given myself to the situation. And he says, and when I hit the ground, he goes, he says, it is felt throughout my whole body. I feel it in my mind, like my brain is shaking. And he says, I feel it in my diaphragm as the wind is being taken out of me. He says, and I feel so alive. And he says, and where others might see that as a bad thing, they might see it as a failure, I see it as fun. And he says, and so I do it again and again. And he says, I don't always fall the same. I don't always land the same. And that's the fun part. And he says, so the next time you are creating something, you're doing something, you're striving for something in your life, what if you could train yourself to understand that it's what we don't expect. It's what we didn't have in mind. It's not the, that's the fun part. It's the unexpected is fun. It's the failing that's the fun. He says, well, he wouldn't call it a failure. He says, I just call it fun. You might call it failure. I call it fun. And if you can have fun in that, then we can have fun with the whole process. And eventually, yes, the quote unquote success will come. And then we're like, that wasn't as fun as the whole lead up to it, as the jumping off and knocking the wind out of myself over and over again. That actually was kind of fun. He says, because there is the standing on top of the world on this giant boulder. And he goes, I feel like the king of the world. I'm on this boulder. Then there's the in-between state. And we were talking about the in-betweens with my ancestor, my Pima ancestor. He says, where I feel like I'm a bird in flight between the rock and the ground. He says, then there's the ground. He goes, and I feel what it's like to feel like the earth herself. And he says, and so much is in it, where if I just would have jumped off the boulder, landed on my feet, it's okay. He says, and maybe that was my objective, but now I want to find a new objective where I can continue to fail in order to understand myself better. He says, and yes, you could understand yourself in your successes. Everything is a learning process. He says, but it's in the failures where we truly understand ourselves, where we see ourselves differently. And you can have fun in the process because it's all unexpected. You're taking a literal fool's leap. It's all unexpected. So in that, you allow room for fun, for joy, and new things could happen. He says, as I was jumping off and knocking the wind out of myself, he says, had I not landed on my face, he goes, I wouldn't have been able to see this beautiful seashell. And we are so far from a beach. He says, the seashell, I wouldn't have seen it had I landed on my feet, is what I'm trying to say. I had to land on my face to see that beautiful, beautiful trinket. And he says, and I will make a necklace out of it, and I will carry it with me, not as something like, oh, I have something shiny and new and I want to brag about it. He says, but more as a reminder that, he says, most of my life's treasures came from when I fell on my face, but I had fun doing it. Okay, so let's pull a card for this young boy, for you. Oh, and we also got young woman once again. And yes, he's just reiterating. Think about what has been instilled in you. Like in terms of your career, we're told we have to get a house, we got to get married, we got to do da 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 da. He says, and that's fine. If that's really what you want to do, and you find yourself, quote unquote, successful with that, like, oh, well, I got the house and I got the car and I got married and all of that. But he says, what about all the stuff that was in between? He says, it's one thing to tell the story of, I did this and this, and he says, and I succeeded. He says, but really, what's the core of that story? The core of the story is where it didn't quite go how we expected it. He says, if on your way to get that house, if the house was really something that let's say you decided, and you're going to tell the story to somebody, he says, are you going to tell the story as, well, I made enough money and I got a house, end of story? He says, well, that's boring. He says, no, it's, well, first I had to do this, and then I struggled with this, but then I met this person, then I found this job, and then I met this opportunity, and then I ended up making this amount of money. And then he says, I just so happened to stumble upon this house, but it turned out to not quite be my dream house. But, there were some snafus that happened in there, and then and now there's this other house. He goes, that's the story. That's why people love storytelling. He says, that's why people write books. That's why people tell stories to their friends. It's the in-between stuff. It's the stuff that didn't quite go the way we had expected it to. It's the snafus that actually make for such a more lively, more fun story. He goes, so in essence, the failure is the fun, not necessarily our success. So I hope that makes sense. Casey Gritter says, appreciate you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Let's see, let's go back here. Knowledge Harvester says, if you connect to my Lyran ancestors, you will learn a lot. I bet. I love connecting with the Lyrans, by the way. I don't think I have a human ancestors like that, though, because I am so mixed. Like Native American, Black European, all together. Beautiful. And Lily says, I had to go back to the things I did from the beginning of my awakening. The pain in my body has become overwhelming. So I had to think back at what helped me, and I recently started again. Oh, wow. And she said the mindset likes to creep in and didn't even notice I was doing it, but I know I will get back to being able to physically feel better. That is beautiful. And sending you tons of love and healing, of course, as well as, to our friend John's little fur baby. Mike Green says, wonderful readings today. I love connecting to your guys' ancestors today. This is wonderful. All right, so let me know if there's anybody else who, has would like to do super chat or super sticker, or would just like to connect to their ancestors through super chat and super sticker. I'd be happy to do that. But if not, let's do a channel guided meditation. But the focus of this one, as I continue to look at Eagle, who is helping us out today, I would like to utilize Eagle. Well, sometimes Eagle does have ego, but I would like to utilize Ego and Eagle and our soul in this channel guided meditation. I would like for us to be able to utilize our ancestors to kind of help walk us through that channel guided meditation, as well as eagle. So, yeah, I think that'll be a lot of fun. That's kind of like the message I'm getting from my own ancestors. They're like, well, let's continue to be utilized. They're like, during your guided meditation as well. And I'm like, okay, I'm all for it. Okay. Good cafe. Okay. So let's get ready for that. Knowledge Harvester says, whoever, whatever my ancestry is, either Lyran or human. Okay, all right. Let's tap in for Knowledge Harvester. And then we will do our channel guided meditation, also utilizing our ancestors, no matter what plane of existence these ancestors come from, whether they are human or otherwise. Just remember, we are all one. My ancestors are your ancestors are my ancestors. Okay, Knowledge Harvester. This is interesting because this is neither human nor Lyran, but I am seeing like a beautiful buck, like male deer. And the antlers are incredible. At first I thought it was an elk, but it's not an elk. This is a deer. And I'm just seeing the deer, the buck, walking through the trees. And although it's not like the mouth is moving, it's more like an intuitive knowing what he's saying. And he says, you know, before I grew these large, massive antlers that I see now, he says, there was a time where I didn't have antlers. There was a time where I thought that's who I was, and that's who I'd always be. You know, every time I rubbed myself against a tree, or I looked at others who are my age and I saw that they didn't have antlers either. And actually, we looked a lot like the females. He says, I thought that's who I was. And so as I started getting older and little nubs started growing on my head, I still had this vision that I don't have antlers, that this is who I always am. And it actually pained me later on because I hadn't noticed that I was changing. I hadn't noticed that I was transforming. I didn't really notice that I was getting bigger and stronger. I didn't notice that the bone growing out of my head was getting larger. And although I could see it in my friends, I thought, that's them. They're changing, but not me. I don't change. I still walk around without antlers on my head until one day, another boy challenged me. He had grown antlers to a degree where he could start locking them with other ones. And he says, he came at me. He says, they weren't very big. They're about this big off his head. He says, only a couple of prongs. And he says, and he's nudging me that he wants to play. He wants to interlock these antlers. And he says, and I was frightened at first. I thought, what are you doing? I don't have this. I don't have these antlers. He's like, but you do. And he says, and when I instinctively locked with him, I realized, oh my gosh, I have changed. And so that's what the buck wants to pass on to you. Pass the buck, so to be. Sorry. But he says, we don't know we've changed. We don't know we've grown until we are being challenged by sometimes, not always, but sometimes, external circumstances. He says, I'd have no idea that I was growing these things on top of my head had one of my friends not come and challenged me and nudged me with his own antlers. And then I said, oh my goodness, I have antlers. He says, but it didn't end there. He says, so then I had to reevaluate my sense of self and who I am and who I see myself as in my mind, because I used to always just see myself as small, as kind of weak and without antlers. But now here I am. I'm bigger, I'm stronger, and I have this bone growing out of my head. And I wouldn't have known that had my friends not challenged me. He says, but then as I got bigger, my antlers got bigger. And at first I thought, this is something I can't stand this change. This is too much for me. You know, I'll never be able to hold these giant heavy things on top of my head. My neck will never support it, but it did. He says, and so I keep telling myself, this is not possible. This is not who I am. But yet I always grow into what I think I can't be. And I end up being that thing. He says, and oh my goodness, the day that those antlers fell off, that I shed my antlers, I thought that I had lost my identity. But really, I was just coming into a new version of myself. I was growing anew, different antlers, but I didn't know that at the time. And so he understands that you too are going through this growing process. That maybe at first you saw yourself one way, and it wasn't until you were challenged by another or challenged by a situation that then you had to reevaluate who you truly are. And then you grew in that way. And then it seemed like all the world fell apart, just like when his antlers fell off of his head, when he shed his antlers. He's saying, then I thought I lost my sense of identity, because now I had grown accustomed to always having that identity about me, having these massive antlers. I always thought that that's who I am. But I realized I am whoever I am in the present moment. It doesn't matter if I'm young and small and without antlers, or I'm the in-between where I have just a couple of prongs coming out of my head, or I'm this, giant buck with these giant antlers, or have shed my antlers for the season. I'm always me, but it's okay to have a morphing perspective of self. He says, so I allow myself to be more open to who I see myself as. So that way we don't become blindsided when something changes because of external circumstances, or sometimes those internal circumstances, those things that challenge us. And he says, and that's why those challenges are there, is so that you can continually see that you are continually changing, that you're never staying the same. He says, I'm never going to continue to be that young, small, he says, buck, but I'm neither the giant buck with giant antlers. Sometimes I don't have those antlers. And he goes, and at some point I did grow old and I didn't have so much strength about me, but this wasn't something to cry about. It was just a new transformation of self, a new way of seeing myself. I had now a new set of wisdom, a new set of skills, because of this change. And so he is just relaying this changes that you're going through as well. And that it's okay. It's okay to continue to see yourself differently from day to day, moment to moment, year to year. All of it is you, but you are continually changing. Okay, so pull a card on that. Wow, that card just flew away. That sucks. I guess I could go through the fence and get it, and I will. So I think that's kind of important. But maybe that's part of your message too, that maybe things don't always go our way. So we're going to go get that card. Maybe you can see me go get it. Okay. I'm going to go in the mud here and try not to get myself stuck too much. Ah! I had to wear a slippery sweater, right? Okay. It just has my hair. That's all right. Hold on. My hair is caught in the barbed wire. And that is a lot of hair. Okay. Alrighty. I have made it. Wow, my hair really wanted to be in the barbed wire there. That's cool. Okay. Our card. Ha! Okay, we have the Jack of Clubs, Nadi Sangochon from the Apache. Ha 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 ha. Okay, I'm gonna come back through the barbed wire fence. But maybe I'll pick a spot that's less pokey. Actually, maybe in here. I'll try to keep my hair to myself this time. Oh wow, the birdies are out. Okay. Ah, I've almost made it through. Okay. Okay, hold on. There we go. Ah. Yay! I made it. Okay. Alrighty. It's been a while since I had to go through barbed wire. Okay, so we have our Apache friend here with that Jack of Clubs. And it totally, I feel that reiterates kind of what our buck friend, our dear friend, was saying, being able to see oneself differently. And the reason I say that is because when I was younger, I was probably about, I don't know, like 12 or 13 years old. And my grandparents, their whole property was surrounded in, they had a chain link fence, and then up at the top, they had a few strands of barbed wire. And my brother and I were running away from these dogs. And I tried to climb the fence, and I tried to climb the barbed wire. And I was like, I got myself caught up in the barbed wire. And actually, I have a scar on my upper arm. It's smaller now because I'm taller and older now. But I had gotten this scar from this barbed wire. And so since then, I had always thought in my mind, like, like if I try to go through a barbed wire fence, it's going to cut me up, and I'm always going to hurt myself. But I have since learned how to kind of get through barbed wire. Hence, I could get through there and not like tear up my clothes and tear up my skin. And so it's like what the buck was saying, in our mind, we may have had an experience, and we say, because of that experience, I'm always going to react this way, and this is always going to be the outcome. But we have changed since then. We've learned more since then. And so what happened then doesn't mean is what's going to be now. And so in this circumstance, like let's say here, this card blew on the other side of the barbed wire fence. And so that would have forced me to see myself differently in the present moment, and not necessarily say, I'm going to cut myself because I did when I was 12 years old. I'm much older than I was when I was 12 years old. So, and the circumstances are different. I've grown and changed. I've learned more. I've learned how to go through a fence. So, it's different. And so I hope that makes sense, about this growing and shifting and welcoming challenges and conflict sometimes, so that we can see ourselves differently, and then we can grow because of it. So hope that makes sense, knowledge harvester. Let's see, let's go back here. Knowledge harvester says that was one beautiful message, deep and wild, but yet spiritual. Loved that. Also, after this live, I'm going outside to eat some grass. Nice. Let's see. Yeah, I didn't hurt myself on the fence. Not like when I was 12, because I have changed. I have grown. Knowledge Harvester says, I have a huge scar on my chest when I was young. I ran straight into a fence with wires on it. Ooh, well, but now you know that won't happen again. You have grown and changed. Mike says, back safe. Knowledge Harvester says, oh, damn, you went through the same thing as me and even got a scar too. My scar is huge, the size on my arm from my left hip to the other side of my chest. Oh, wow. Mine is not that large, but sometimes our scars are internal, sometimes our scars are physical and external, but they are really just messages of where we were, who we used to be, but it doesn't mean that that's who we are now necessarily, because that scar has healed, right? It might still be visible. Sometimes those scars are still felt on the inside, but they have healed, and it means we have grown and we can learn from it, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's who we are right now. All right, so thank you. Lily said, ouch, I know. All right, so sending everybody lots of love. And on that note, let's continue to call in our ancestors and have them help us with our channeled guided meditation. So I'm going to put my my deck away here. And we have some beautiful trees for you guys to look at. Also, for me, the trees represent the ancestors themselves, that they are in those trees, living with the soul of those trees. And I'm going to move out of the way so you guys have a better view. All right. Everything's melting. It's getting all ready. All right, I'm going to put my talking stick over here. And I'm going to put this like this. Okay, so let's take a look at some of the trees over here, actually. All right, so let's get ready for that channel guided meditation. Again, remember that we have Eagle helping us out, as well as our ancestors. So I encourage you to go ahead and find yourself a nice, comfortable space, a place you'll be undisturbed for the next several minutes. You could be laying on a bed, sitting in a chair, or perhaps laying under your favorite tree. And if you are outdoors and you find yourself standing in the grass or the soil, the sand, I want you to place one hand over your heart and the other hand on the floor. If you are indoors, I want you to do this as well. But I want you to visualize your favorite outdoor spot. Perhaps it's a place that you have visited. Maybe it's a place you've only visited in your dreams or in your imagination, or a place that you hope to visit someday. And as we continue to breathe, I want you to feel into that rhythm beneath your hand that is over your heart, feeling the rhythmic thump, 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 and feeling connected to that, and seeing how the beating of your heart is also connected to that beautiful breath being very mindful of those inhales and those exhales. And that other hand that you have placed on the ground, I want you to try your best to feel the heartbeat of the earth, the heartbeat of the world in which you live, being held by one of our older ancestors, Gaia herself. She is both present and non-present at the same time, much like us, in our human form, yet also a soul. We are finite yet infinite at the same time. And this is the in-between that we aim to focus on. As you feel your breath entering and exiting your lips, feel that in-between state. Focus on it. As you feel the heartbeat beneath your palm of your hand, focus on the space between the beats. And the same for the hand that is placed upon the earth. The space between the beats. The space between life and death. The physical and the non-physical, day and night, the here and past. And as you continue to breathe and to feel that heart, to feel that breath, to feel that in-between states, this is where we send our consciousness. Set the intention that you are going into the in-between state at this moment, between night and day, life and death, physical and non-physical, finite and infinite. Between those beats, between that breath. And as you move into this space, allow your ancestors to come forward. For now you are in the space in which they exist. We don't pass any sort of judgment. We are just witnessing whoever or whatever it is that steps forward. Be they extraterrestrial, perhaps animal, perhaps human, perhaps just a color or energy. Maybe it's a sound that steps forward, like the sound of the drum or a flute. But allow whatever it is, in whatever form it may take, to come forward in the understanding that this ancestor is a part of you. This ancestor came forward for a reason, and they have a message to share with you. So in this moment, allow them to share their message. There's no need to interpret their message at this time. We are merely just listening and integrating. We're giving space, holding space for them as much as we are holding space for ourselves. Allow them to speak freely, whether through song, through color, through vibration, through feeling, or perhaps even through words. And we just listen. We are just allowing what they're sharing to be felt inside of us. And later, when we exit this meditation, we will have time for all of the analysis that we want, for the journaling, for the painting, for however we would like to record this. But for now, we are just listening. Allow them to speak. And when you have felt like your ancestor has finished speaking for the time being, thank them for coming out here with you today. Thank them for sharing this space with you. Thank them for their message. Even if we don't quite understand it yet, that is fine. We came here to listen, not to analyze. And again, we go back between that in-between state, between the breaths, between the beats, between life and death, night and day, the here and the past, between notes in a song. We come back to our body. We come back to feeling that hand that is over our chest and that hand that is on the earth. And now we place both hands over our heart and we bow in gratitude. Bring your awareness back into your body. You can go ahead and wiggle your fingers and toes. And when you're ready, go ahead and have yourself a nice big stretch as you take a nice deep breath in. All right, you guys. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today, joining me in ceremony as we connected with our ancestors. I enjoy and I'm grateful for each and every one of you guys. Thank you for those who allowed me to connect to your personal ancestors and bring those messages forward. Thank you so much for allowing me to read for you. Thank you for hanging out with me on this beautiful, beautiful Sunday morning. I hope that you have a beautiful rest of your day. I hope you have a fantastic week. Let me know, either through Instagram or you want to send an email of some wonderful things that are happening for you this week. Maybe some messages you got during the live chat, or perhaps if you're somebody who is watching the replay later on, if you got some downloads, some messages, perhaps during the meditation, maybe while I was reading for others, maybe it was during the weekly reading. I love hearing from you guys. So I will catch you later. Thank you to my mighty, mighty moderators. Have a wonderful day. Peace, love, and chicken grease. Peace out. Bye, guys.